You know, sometimes I don't make a video about every news story and everything that's happening because it's so obvious, it's so insane what the world's doing that I think everyone and everything is lost its ever-loving mind. I know that's not true because there are some of us that reason these things out with this attack, right? This attack on the mosque. I see people out there celebrating, right? Whatever's the motivation behind it, whatever it's going to be used for politically, here's the reality. People are out there saying the Muslims deserve this. They're terrorists. They're terrorists. I got news for you guys. In modern times, the so-called Christian patriot, American freedom-loving soldier, supporter, etc., has killed far more Muslims than Muslims have killed of us. So who are the real terrorists? Well, Blue ISIS is the real terrorist. And so we should be mourning when people lose loved ones. And you know, that actually brings me to another point that I wanted to talk about today, and that's police motorcades. Now, you might think these have two completely different topics. And I could do a whole video and we could talk about the mosque and how it's mentally insane, how it has nothing to do with restricting guns, that won't fix it, how anyone who's out there pretending to be a patriot or a Christian and love justice and use this to say they deserve it or they're terrorists or this is why we need a wall is mentally ill. But this all goes to the propaganda of control that they're locking us all down with. And it goes right back to Blue ISIS. It goes right back to the police motorcade, which is actually why I started recording this video, but I wanted to connect the dots. See, I got a message recently and it was about somebody in Montana that had been shot and was in critical condition, and they were asking for prayers and support and things like this. Now, I was saddened by this and I didn't really know the story. And then today I actually went and started looking up the story, and I saw these news stories talking about this Montana Highway Patrol Trooper, Wade Palmer. He's a 35-year-old member of Blue ISIS. Now, admittedly, Montana police are a bit less psycho than a lot of the other states. Montana's more of a countrified, laid-back kind of state, but these guys are still Blue ISIS. They still live by robbing and stealing and kidnapping and filling for-profit prisons. Okay? Now, it brings an important point, though. The USA is filled with hatred for Muslims, let's say. They're trying to build hatred for the immigrant, for the Honduran, the Mexican, the Guatemalan, right? They're trying to constantly divide us on hate. Now, we could go back to all the inside job conspiracies, many of which are pretty relevant from 9/11 and how they've been using the fear-mongering of the Muslim for over a decade now to fill us on hate, to warmonger, and to build the machine. But it still goes back to Blue ISIS. Have you ever wondered why when a cop is shot, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of dollars are spent on police motorcades and ceremonies and pageantry? And then I saw this one today. This Wade Palmer was investigating a shooting in which, and I had to search for this. All right, I had to search around for this. And if you look at these videos, here's a video from KTQV, and it's called An Outpouring of Support for Trooper Wade Palmer. And it shows all these officers, and they airlifted this Montana officer to Salt Lake City, and Montana officers are getting on board, and they're saying, we're just here to help him, and we want him to be as comfortable as possible. Now, let me be clear. As of this recording, at least, Wade Palmer hasn't died. Let me also be clear. I don't want Wade Palmer to die. I want police to be just. I want police to stop being terrorists. I want society to recognize Blue ISIS for what it is. But that doesn't mean I ever celebrate mindless violence. To be fair, in this case, Wade Palmer is still a member of Blue ISIS, but in this case, it seems that he was investigating an actual murder and shooting. But that's the key here. So I went and I started digging up this, right? There was a man named Casey Julie and a Shelley Hayes who was actually murdered in what appeared to be, the facts are a little loose because the news doesn't care to report on that. All they care about is promoting a hero cop. There was a shooting that seemed to involve some sort of road rage incident in which these 3 people near Missoula were gunned down in their car. It sounds like somebody was flashing their lights at them on the road, so they stopped thinking they needed help, and the guy opens fire on them. Now 2 of them are wounded, and one, this Shelley Hayes, rest in peace, is dead. Apparently, from the information we're getting, remember, Blue ISIS always lies, murdered by this man. So now that here comes Deputy Wade Palmer. Wade Palmer's supposed to be investigating this incident. Wade Palmer goes up to the guy who supposedly just murdered people, which seems a little weird. I thought Blue ISIS usually ran in packs. He goes up and doesn't even get out of his car before this guy, who supposedly shot these other three, shoots Wade Palmer. Now Wade Palmer is wounded. So apparently Wade Palmer, and this is pretty rare, actually was wounded as a Blue ISIS member in the line of theoretically actually trying to solve a real crime, not just robbing someone or trying to send them for a for-profit prison. So Wade Palmer is now taken to this hospital in Salt Lake City. Here's where it gets interesting. The news reports, the things being shared on Facebook, they're barely mentioning the victims. There's fundraisers for Wade Palmer, right? There's all this stuff saying what a hero, all the comments. There's motorcades. Think about this. Now, I actually saw friends and family of the original victims of this accident doing fundraisers for their friend, but that's not getting talked about. All that's being talked about is a cop was shot. Look at these videos. Wade Palmer isn't even dead, guys. They're having a police motorcade where they're shutting down interstates to have a motorcade for a guy that's in the hospital in Salt Lake City, wasting time and money that they could be, if they weren't Blue ISIS, spend trying to stop real crimes. Do you see what's happening here? Are you seeing the connection between the police motorcade, the celebration of cops? Why? Because the only way they legitimize cops, most of what they do is criminal. Most of what cops do is robbing, stealing, extorting, and molesting others. The only way they legitimize them is by investing massive resources into propaganda, motorcades, news propaganda for their puppet news agencies that repeat these stories. They even have motorcades for their dead dogs to build propaganda, and no one cares less about our dogs than police. They kill ours all the time.
Trooper Wade Palmer was originally sent to St. Patrick's Hospital in Missoula. Later, he was light flown to a Salt Lake City hospital for treatment for his gunshot wounds. Hundreds of law enforcement officers from all different agencies gathered for one of their own.
See, what makes me angry is not that I'm glad that Wade Palmer got shot. I don't relish violence. I don't want our mindset to be, let's shoot everyone that gets in our way. I want us to stop criminals as peacefully as possible, no matter what costume that criminal is wearing. What frustrates me here, and should frustrate you, is the clear intent of spending taxpayer money and resources while real crimes are being committed, while real people are suffering, while prison concentration camps are full and judges fill them for profit, while police rape, molest, and murder our civilianry. The money is invested in what? Propaganda, motorcades, parades. Officers standing outside other wounded officers' doors. See, when our families get shot, the police don't rush to start fundraisers for our families. When our families are in the hospital because someone beat the crap out of them, or maybe a police officer shot them, the police officers are never there to stand outside the door and support. They're always there to abuse us. But when one of theirs gets shot, it's a propaganda machine. The same propaganda machine that's been enslaving us for decades. Government are heroes, let's have a parade for them. And oh, sorry to you cannon fodder who got run over along the way. Muslims are the enemy. The government, the troops, and the police will save us. But it's not the Muslims killing us. It's the government, the troops, and the police. See, the real terrorists are, and have been at least for a long time, our government. Our government massacres Native Americans. Our government massacres people in other countries. Our government and our soldiers, following orders at their behest and pretending that it's protecting freedom, kills, murders, rapes, pillages, burns, robs on the side of the road, imprisons, and then, when our families die and are wounded on the side of the road, we desperately try and reach out to friends to get the support we need to help them. While Blue ISIS and our government has parties, flies people in on airlines and sets up motorcades so they can keep the image, See, the government doesn't care about cannon fodder officers like Wade here. He's just a tool for them. They don't care about a motorcade for Wade. The system of Blue ISIS doesn't even care if Wade survives. I actually do. But the system doesn't, because Officer State Trooper Wade Palmer is much more valuable to them dead as propaganda. See, Blue ISIS loves the blood of their brothers, because the blood of their brothers, it's currency for propaganda, for fear-mongering, and for the idol worship that makes your dumbed down, ignorant neighbors say, police protect us, police are heroes, and oh good, someone at least is killing Muslims. That's not freedom, that's not justice, that is cognitive dissonance, that's mental illness, that's hate for your neighbor. I don't want anybody getting shot. I don't want anybody getting gunned down to the streets. I want us to stand up. I want us to resist Blue ISIS and refuse to comply en masse. I want the people to send the Blue ISIS thugs and their government cronies and politicians running and packing in fear the other way, so that none of us has to use violence. That's the connection. That's why it matters. That's why the police motorcade is not okay. It's a propaganda scam. That's why it's not okay to celebrate innocent Muslims being killed, because you're too stupid to research the facts and instead you believe the propaganda. The propaganda coming from the same people that are giving you that motorcade. All right, you guys, just some things to think about. Peace.